Firstly, as part of our Harlow is 70 years of age heritage project, asking lots of people why they came to Harlow. Taking yourself back, why did you come to Harlow? And when did you come and why did you come?
Well, it's quite an amazing story, really, which you'll hear in my performance. To cut a long story short, when I was a kid, my dad died when I was 10, and I won a scholarship to a really horrible charity boarding school in West Sussex. And I was really, really unhappy there. And when I was 14, my mum remarried, and I didn't get on with my stepfather at all. I made a good friend at school called Tony Poulter, and he invited me to stay with his family because I wasn't getting on with my stepfather, and I basically almost became a fixture in Roydon from the age of about 15 to about 17. Many of the holidays I'd spend quite a lot of the time here in Roydon. So being the kind of person I am, I wandered into Harlow. And I can't remember exactly how or when, but in about 1975, hanging around somewhere, drinking, probably, I was eligible, I was sort of drinking age by then, but I met Richard Hogarth. Richard Hogarth is the first person I met in Harlow, and it would have been about 75, because I was just starting at the University of Kent, and I put Pete and the Meat in the Boys, his first band, maybe it wasn't his first band, but anyway, I put Pete and the Meat and the Boys on at the University of Kent at one of my Rock Against Racism gigs, because I was organising that there, it would have been 76. And to cut a long story short, again, since when I finished university, I still didn't get on with my stepfather, and I knew I was going to go to Belgium because there was a chance to set up Rock Against Racism in Brussels, and I knew I was going to go there, and I needed some money to basically keep myself going while I was out there, because I was just going to be playing violin in the street to earn a living. So I wanted some quick money, and Richard told me there was seasonal jobs going at Gilbey's in the old Pinnacles. So I spent 2 months. This would have been Christmas, October to December 1978. I spent 2 months working nights for 12 hours, shoving booze around on the conveyor belts, and obviously accidentally dropping them off sometimes, as we know, and then putting them behind the back, and then we all got absolutely pissed. And so then I went off to Belgium. I came back in about October, September. The job was still available for the following year, seasonal job. I came back up. The first time I was living in Wedhay, sharing a flat with Chris Roskell and Jenny Levac. Second time I came back, by that time I'd met Steve and the Newtown Erotics, and he said, "Well, I've just got my flat. Do you fancy crashing at my place while you're doing this temporary job?" So what it was, effectively, a 2-month crash in Steve's flat when I was doing this temporary job in Harlow, ended up with me being sort of based here on and off, really, from about 1979 to about 1991. I mean, I say that because I was charging around all over the place anyway, doing gigs, and then and my previous partner lived in South London, and so I spent a lot of time with her, but my address was Spencer's Croft from 79 to 91. I'm originally from Southwick, Port Tanner, Shoreham Harbour on the Sussex coast, basically, for those who aren't from where we are, Brighton, really, effectively. So I moved back there in 1991, but obviously I've still kept a huge contact with Harlow, because my best friend Steve Druitt lives here, and the music scene is unprecedented, really. I mean, one of the reasons that I stayed here because the music scene, I'd come from Brighton, and the music scene was very, very fragmented. And it was like the difference between Arsenal and Leyton Orient in football terms. There you've got Brighton's, like, it's got this huge scene that's spread everywhere, but it's already up its own arse. By 1979, the punks were turning into mods, and there was all kinds of infighting, and there was loads of sort of really pretentious stuff going on. And I came to Harlow, and I met Steve, and I saw the Neurotics and the Sods, and Pete and the Meat and the Boys, and the Spelling Mistakes, and all those early bands. And it was a lovely little contained scene. You'll hear a poem. I'm going to do a poem tonight called Foyer Bar, which is about where we used to hang out really before the square got going, in the early 80s. We used to hang out in the foyer bar of Harlow Playhouse. And I've got a little poem about that and about how it was then. And I felt really at home here. I mean, and a lot of people back then would always say, "Well, how the hell, you're from Brighton? I mean, Brighton's like a really hip place. How did you end up in Harlow?" And I just explained, basically, because I really did feel at home here. And also, ironically, of course, once I'd got my own place, I could then go back to my mum's in Brighton on my own terms, and things got a lot easier then, because I wasn't actually, a kid supposed to be living at home with his mother and stepfather. And obviously I was going, because I'm Brighton of Albion until I die, I was going to watch the football and everything as well. But that's how I ended up in Harlow, and my link with the town is something that I've always been very proud of, and something that has continued, even though I haven't actually lived here since 1991. I've been back regularly performing and seeing Steve and meeting all my friends, and loads of the people obviously who started off in Harlow I meet gigging all over the place, and the square has been a big part of my life. I mean, remember I did my first gig at Bush Fair Play Barn on September the 8th 1980, supporting the defects, the condemned and the unborn dead. Hopefully a couple of them will be along today. And my second gig was at Rock Against Thatcher at the Square, and all my early gigs were either at the Square or that place, was it Centre Point in Epping? Yeah.
You're very good on dates. Did you keep a diary? And how do you remember September the 8th, 1980s?
Well, it was an important day for you? I remember it because it was, I've earned my living doing what I love since really the beginning of 1982. And right from the very first gig, I thought to myself, this actually could work, because I'd seen the Clash. I always said I saw the Clash, and I thought, right, I'm going to do that. Then I saw John Cooper Clarke, and I thought, actually, I could probably do that, actually, as well. And that's what I've done. I've got a band called Barnstormer, but primarily I'm a performance poet who writes songs as well, but primarily spoken word.
A couple of questions. Has Harlow inspired any of your work?
Oh yes. Well, you're here today. There's a couple. There's 3 or 4 quite serious pieces and one exceedingly silly one. It is fair to say that in my early days in Harlow, the song that I was, the piece that I was most well known for, notorious for, was a song about a dead cat full of maggots called the Spencer's Croft Cat, which basically by this time was the Neurotics, when Newtown Neurotics were going. I just started as Attilla the Stockbroker. We did loads of gigs together. I was sharing the flat with Steve Drewitt in Spencer's Croft. I came back one night. It was actually Valentine's Day 1980. Valentine's Day 1980. We came back, and in the road there was a cat which had obviously just had an unfortunate relationship with a motor vehicle, and it was just lying there. So we put it in the bushes, and we thought Harlow Council would come and clear it away, and they didn't, and stayed in the bushes. And spring turned to summer, and it got all wriggly, and I wrote a song about it. And the song became a sort of legendary in the sense that there was graffiti, bury the Spencer's Croft Cat, it's a dead cat, bury the Spencer's Croft Cat, and we had demonstrations where we'd have a sort of anti-fascist demonstration, but the National Front is an artsy front, and a few of us would start going, the Spencer's Croft Cat is a dead cat, bury the Spencer's Croft Cat. It was really silly, but it was just one of those funny things. But yes, the serious ones, Contributory Negligence was written while I was living in Harlow. My satire on the judge who said that a woman who was hitchhiking late at night and was raped was asking to be raped because she was a woman, and was therefore guilty of contributory negligence. That one, Airstrip 1, that was probably the song that I'm most proud of, really, of all actually, was the link between the port town in Sussex where I grew up and where I now live, and Harlow, because it mentions both in the same song. And Foyer Bar, which I could do for you now if you like. This was about the early days of the Harlow punk scene. Living in a brave new town, things can often get you down. Not much to say, not much to do. Existence gets on top of you. Well, some folks say, well, why not go and meet a girl in a disco? But I don't want to walk that far, so I go to the Foyer Bar. We go there and we sit together. Uniform is jeans and leather, and we sit and drink and doze, and we sit and drink and pose. Everything we say is cool. Big fish in a little pool. Yeah, if you want to be a star, you'll make it in the Foyer Bar. And that was the difference between Harlow and Brighton, because Brighton, everything was everywhere, right? In Harlow, we all went to the Foyer Bar. So it was like a big fish in a little pool. It was kind of and there was so much creativity here in the late 70s, early 80s. There were so many bands doing really good stuff, and of course there was the Stork Beat record label that Billy Meadows and Kevin Jones started, which put the bands out. Like the Mersey runs through Liverpool, the River Stork runs through Harlow, so hence Stork Beat. And it was just brilliant. It had a huge influence on my early kind of life, really, as a performer.
As we're only 2 or 3 days after a general election, and I guess we still feel we are in a general election, don't we? Were you surprised, and are you surprised that when you lived here, Harlow, for a great part, had a Conservative MP, and Harlow's just returned a Conservative MP of a majority?
Well, I tell you, I have got a good memory, because I can remember '79 when Stan Newens lost his seat. And Stan Newens lost his seat in the most ridiculous 3-way split, where the Tory, whose name was Hayes, Jerry Hayes, got about 23,000, Stan got 22,000, the Liberal Democrats got 21,000. And I know, obviously, Bill Ramwell got in later on. But I mean, I was full of hope for this. I mean, I was, where we are, I mean, I was campaigning in Hove for Peter Kyle, and he turned an 1,800 majority into an 18,000 majority. In Kemp Town, which was Tory by 600, we ended up with a 10,000 majority. And in East Worthing, this is that's the art. That's obviously Pavilion is Caroline Lucas, who's just going to get in easily anyway. But that is the sort of the hub. Where we are, it's the people that live there, and it's a completely different constituency, literally. And it's been, I mean, the Spencer's Croft Cat could get in with the Blue Rosette, but even there, Tim Loughton, our local horrible slimy local MP, got the same 25,000. But our new transgender candidate Sophie Cook. Certainly the first transgender photographer for AFC Bournemouth and the Libertines to stand in East Worthing and Shoreham for the Labour Party. She got the vote up from 9,000 to 20,000, 11,000, swing of 20%. Right? I was really sad about Harlow. I thought that it would happen, but everywhere's different. And of course here there is this kind of rather, there are places where the Sun and the Mirror and the Sun and the Mail have very little traction anymore because we can do everything online. But I can tell in a place like Harlow that there's still quite a lot of that. People still get that. People still believe some of that stuff. And it's shocking actually when I see the town centre now. As when I first came here, when I see the state of the town centre now compared to when I first came in the mid-70s, it was a nice place. When I first came.
And the state or non-state of the square.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is the biggest, most disgusting thing of all. Now, my thoughts are unprintable about that. I mean, what Circle Housing have done, I mean, I can't be libellous here, but shall we say that Circle Housing haven't covered themselves in glory in terms of the description of many of the projects that they have been involved in, and now the place is just lying there rotting. At least to have the decency to knock it down after everything it's given us over the years. Yeah. That is just contemptible.
So finally, taking us
and the role of Harlow Council in the whole thing, I think, has also been pretty pathetic, to be honest.
I'm aware we haven't got much time, and just taking ourselves up to date. So what brings you here to Harlow in June 2017?
Well, I mean, Adam's running this series of gigs for the Black, doing this. Adam deserves huge credit for what he's done here. For first of all, for fighting to save the square, and now for setting up this place, and obviously he's turned Burnt Mill School Hall into a gig venue. He's an amazing guy. I'm totally, I'm someone like that. I get out and I do things. I run a beer music festival that happened last week. So I really respect people that do that, and he's brilliant, right? And he asked me to do it. It's great. And I just thought, and also there's something special coming on today, because it's funny because you've asked me this, but I'm actually on stage going to talk about how I ended up in Harlow in the first place, and the family who I came to stay with when I was a little kid are all coming in. And mum, dad's 89 and mum's 81, and and it's kind of, and I'm telling that story about all of that because I had some real shit going on when I was young, and Harlow actually really helped me. I mean, I know that it has people say, oh, bloody hell, someone from a place like Brighton, you could end up here. But Harlow actually really did me a lot of good in the early 1980s, I can tell you. I mean, that might sound a weird thing to say, but it really did.